Good morning, and thank you all for joining us on a very beautiful morning here in Washington, D.C., which belies what's happening in the Gulf today with this oil spill and with hurricane season having started. Despite the beautiful weather here in D.C., we know that troubled times can happen, and troubled times could be very close around the corner in terms of hurricanes and storms and other difficulties in the Gulf. So it's, I guess, a good time to talk about one of the bills that this coalition believes can help and can be a strong and important tool in our arsenal to protect and help people in catastrophic disasters. One thing we learned many lessons in the hurricane seasons of the past, particularly the Katrina, Rita, and Wilma situation, which were very difficult. But one thing we learned was that FEMA had not been designed as effectively as possible when it comes to dealing with the needs of children. And while we had 1 million+ people displaced in the storm, we failed to realize that about a third or more were children. And their needs are sometimes very different. Children are in school. Most parents aren't, although some are. Children need daycare, and parents need daycare for their children. There were all sorts of things that we learned. The shelters weren't set up appropriately to take care of children. As small children and infants were evacuated from hospitals, it didn't seem like anyone had thought that that population would have to be dealt with. So all of these lessons we've learned. The committee and commission that was put together after Katrina and Rita have come up with some very excellent recommendations that have been incorporated into this legislation. Mark Shriver and Linda Smith have been giving leadership to that coalition, and they will speak about more of the details of the bill. But I'm pleased to be the lead sponsor in the Senate. Congresswoman Corinne Brown from Florida, who's experienced her own share of devastating hurricanes for Florida, has joined me in this effort, and I'm particularly grateful to her leadership for helping establish the initial commission and now helping us with the legislation to put into law many of the findings of this commission. So it's appropriate that we have this press conference today to let people know of the work that's being done and to urge our colleagues in the Senate and the House to support this Children in Disasters bill.
Well, first I want to start out by thanking Senator Landrieu and Congresswoman Brown and Mark Shriver for their leadership on this issue and for not forgetting the child care programs across this country and how important they are after a disaster. I want to remind people that there are over 11 million children every week in some kind of non-parental care in this country under the age of 5. And then I want to ask you to think about if you have a child, let's say 2 or 3 years old, and what they can say themselves to someone about their name. Can they say their parents' phone number? Can they say their parents' name even? It's really important that we think about these children in a disaster. And then we need to think about the parents who are probably at work somewhere, separated from their children, and have no idea of whether their children are going to be cared for, where they're going to go, what they're going to do, if they're going to get medicine if they need it. And so these are really important issues that this country needs to think about, because every day, as I said, 11 million children are in this situation. There are over 350,000 child care programs in this country that are licensed and many more that are not licensed. These programs are located all over our communities, and not like schools where everyone knows where they are. These programs are in homes, in churches, in strip malls, and they're dotted across our communities, and no one has really stopped to think about where are these programs, and more importantly, are the people working in them trained to care for children after a disaster? Well, this bill will fix that for us, and it will call on states to take care of these things and make plans for these programs and for staff to be trained on these issues. The bill will require states to have disaster plans that address evacuation of child care, reunification, temporary operating standards, and many more things that child care needs to be thought through. Children are not little adults, folks, and I think Senator Landrieu said that. No one really thought about what was going to happen to children in a shelter after Katrina. But we had children we saw standing in lines, clinging to their parents' legs as they waited in the hot sun to get water or any kind of relief. And we can really do better for our nation's children than that. NACRA and Save the Children have been working for quite some time on model standards for child care programs before, during, and after a disaster like Katrina and Rita. And we will publish them in this next month. This is a requirement proposed in this legislation, and one that we support and we stand ready to fulfill as soon as we get this legislation in place. There are many more pieces to this about how to plan for and take care of children after a disaster. We know that after Katrina and Rita, many parents couldn't find childcare to even go back to work or to begin to clean up their property. And you can't have little children 2 years old toddling around a destroyed structure with nails and glass and all of that. So we really need to think through, how do we provide temporary childcare immediately after a disaster, and then how do we begin to rebuild it after, in the long haul. So this legislation will do all of this for this country. I want to say to these two great legislators here that NACRA stands ready to help you in any way that we can to see that this gets taken care of, because we have too many children right now that their future is being left to chance. Thank you.